Podcasting from the Sound of Freedom Studios, this is Local Politics. You ready?
I am ready.
All right. Our next guest is born and raised in Universal City, still lives in Universal City. He's a CPA that owns his own firm in Universal City. They employ over 30 people. They do tax audit for cities, or audits for cities, and they also do taxes for businesses and some individuals. He claims he was determined to live near a beach, but is now married with 2 kids, living a quarter mile from his parents and a half a block away from the Olympia swimming pool, which is close to a beach. Our next guest is Councilman Phil Vaughan. All right, welcome, Phil. How are things going in Universal City? I see you're not wearing a blue shirt.
I'm not. Would you prefer I wear a blue shirt? Do you have a hard time identifying me without a blue shirt?
Does Ashton have a blue dress?
She does not. She has a blue cardigan.
Really?
For her pink dress.
Is she wearing a pink dress?
Everything has pink on it.
Yeah.
So last night was pink flowers.
Okay.
But yeah, no. She has a cardigan that she may or may not wear future meetings.
Well, good for her. She's kind of, when we had her in
Bucking
here.
the trend.
Well, when we had her in here to interview her, remember, she is kind of a rebel.
Her face went blank when you asked her that. It was such a gaffe of a question. He goes, "Hey, seriously, if you get elected, are you going to wear the blue shirts?" And she was like, and he goes, "I'm just kidding. It's just a joke."
But I think what's weird is that she didn't think anybody else noticed or cared, but she was 100% against it before she knew her answer to that question. But I think she was more blank that you asked it.
Yeah.
Well, I think the outward appearance of the blue unity is kind of a cool thing, but I also think, it also, is it really that necessary? I said, it seems like matching name badges or something would be different because, our CPA, we have a CPA here in Selma, Jim Parma, former mayor, that's on our city council, and he wears more of the flannel style shirts, and, I'm more of a fishing shirt type of guy, but I wear a sport coat at my meetings and
over the fishing shirt.
Yeah, well, nobody's wearing T-shirts or anything, but everybody kind of has their own thing. But the one thing that kind of always separated Universal City in my mind was that everybody wore blue shirts. But good for Ashton. I'm glad she's willing to do that and buck the trend a little bit. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I didn't have the stones to do it. I had the same objection to it, and then I made a political calculation.
Choose your battles type of thing.
Yeah, it's only do this, try to be part of the team, and maybe they'll work with me on some things.
You'll get the shirt, but you're not going to get my support for the golf course.
Well, right. Well, and you're kind of, let's talk about that. So you've been elected for what, about a year?
Yeah, last May. And so just over a year, and you've kind of been a little bit on an island. I know, some council members, but overall in Universal City, you got the board, Kim was running the show with her job, and then the board was kind of almost always agreeing upon the same agenda. There wasn't a lot of no votes for a long time. We have that kind of culture right now in Selma. And then you got elected and you're like, well, wait a minute, I got some questions. I'm a CPA, I audit governments. And so you started asking questions. And how long did it take you to get, after you got settled in? Was that like the first meeting you were like, wait, I got some questions, or did it take some time? Or the first one. I think it was meeting 2 was my first no vote, which is why I have my getting here. I thought about bringing this to the dais and be like,
I love it.
Nope, we're not doing that.
Yeah, Ron Paul had something going on like that. Dr. No.
But if you haven't played Exploding Kittens, you need to, because then they have the note card.
Okay.
But anyway, my first vote when I voted no, it was a innocuous library policy where they wanted to really restrict how you rent the space. And we all kind of talked about it, like, no, we don't want to do this. Let's change the policy, but let's approve it anyway, and then you can bring it back later. And I was like, well, wait a minute. No, we all agree. Like we don't approve this policy. So I voted no. And I think the mayor almost fell out of his chair because he was so used to everybody just saying yes. And I'm Vaughn, so I'm always the last one. So it's yes, 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 yes. Nope. I mean, you can see it on the video. Yeah, but now it's kind of like he's not as shocked when there's a no, but it's usually once a meeting. I like to drop the nope on the rest of the council. But it's been hard because you're right. Everybody trusts the city manager, which is probably basically where you guys are.
Yeah.
You kind of trust what's happening. You sort of you're plugged in. Stuff comes up, and you give them the benefit of the doubt. Where I'm more of the skeptical. I
I don't trust them. I don't have that relationship. They bring something up to me for the first time. So one of the most stressful things is you get a Friday. I get the agenda at like 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm working. I see my phone blow up, and I'm like, oh God, we gotta look at this and see what's gonna happen on Tuesday. So then it's Friday night. I'm looking at this agenda, and it's like, what the hell is this? Like, what are all these? Where did this come from? So then I'm stewing Saturday and Sunday because city's closed. You can't really get any answers. And I got to go to work on Monday. Tuesday night, we got to make a decision. And it's like, well, what do I do with this? All right, no. I mean, it's like, how do I? Yeah. We don't have any kind of projection of what's coming in the future, what's coming down the pipe, so we can be prepared for it. And so it's really hard to make some kind of judgment call on that sort of timeline.
Good for you.
Well, and we do things
really. I mean, so many people get, even on the small local level, so many people just get pressured into following along with everybody else. They're just like, yes, but I mean, yeah, man, I hate not having enough time and enough information to, if you're trying to vote on something. Good for you, man.
Well, and I've been following. We had Jose in here, Macias, talking about some of the Judson stuff, Phil, and I know I've been talking to you a little bit about some of it, and I've been watching those meetings lately. Just we had the bond passed, and great district, and then they chase off the super popular superintendent and some of those type of things. But when I look at what you did in Universal City, I look at Monica Ryan kind of in that spot now where she's doing the research on budgets, really trying to understand it, poring over the agenda, going back and looking at old minutes from old meetings, and spending way more time than any person should have to do for a job that doesn't pay. And she's asking questions, and it's like hard, but she's kind of feels like she's on an island right now where she's not getting a lot of support from the other council members or trustees, because they're just used to just kind of going along with the thing. In Selma, we get our packet about a week ahead of time. And we usually get a call from Johnny or an email. Hey, just Kevin, do you have any questions? Is there anything, did you read your packet? Just kind of trying to put pressure on me to, if there's anything explosive, call me and let me know what your questions are going to be, ahead of time or whatever. And we try to afford them that courtesy. You don't want to surprise your city manager and make them look foolish on the dais, right?
Right.
You want to let them know, but unfortunately, with you getting your packet right when you crack your first beer at 4:00 on Friday, you got all weekend to think about it before you can ask somebody a question, and they may not, because your meetings are. Let's see, you guys meet twice a month on Tuesday night,
right?
The second and fourth Tuesday, is that right?
Right, first and third.
First and third, okay, first and third Tuesday. And then another thing about your council meetings too. So I wanted to ask you about the this past election, because now you have we've made a change. There's 2 new council members that just won the election. Why do you think there are 2 new council?
The incumbents.
Yeah.
Ran,
well,
right?
One person stepped down, right? Was it Shelby?
Shelby stepped down.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had another incumbent that was defeated, one incumbent that was reelected, Goolsby, and then Fitzpatrick and Bullman were elected. And there was there's kind of a politically connected group in Universal City, and they sort of handpick a candidate, and they have a very strong Facebook group where they promote those candidates. And so that person gets kind of, I guess, blessed. And that was Fitzpatrick. And so she got a large percentage of the vote. And she's been in the community for several years, and she's everywhere. So everybody kind of knows her. And I think that's one of the reasons why she did so well in the election. But she's kind of the continuation of the person that left. So there's really not a change there.
Incumbent
in my
2.0.
mind. Exactly. In my opinion. And then Ashton, she worked her butt off. I was pretty disappointed, honestly. I mean, she worked so hard. She knocked on, I believe it was like 1,500 doors, talked to about 800 people. She did everything you could possibly do in an election to get elected, and she was kind of middle of the pack. I mean, she was finished third, and we were kind of expecting it was going to be like the biggest ever. Like she was going to set records, and then it was kind of like, oh man, that was disheartening. But you have 20,000 people and you get 2,000 votes.
Right.
And that's just, it's hard to really A lot of people who knocked on the doors never showed up to vote.
But Ashton, I thought Ashton was elected.
She is.
She was.
Oh.
But she came in third. So it's the top 3.
You were just thinking that it was going to be kind of more of a landslide for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it didn't pay off because none of the other candidates did anywhere near what she did. There was also Bernie Rubel who worked really hard. He did a lot of door-to-doors and he finished 4th.
Ross Perot right there, man. Ross Perot
Well,
2.0.
Bernie's mistake, though, now that's who I was just going to talk about, is I saw him campaign. You know, I campaigned hard with Monica in Universal City, so I was up there a lot. I met all kinds of people in Universal City. On the Judson part of Universal City, I should, qualify that because there's a huge chunk that goes to SCUC. And so I ran into Bernie one day, and he was kind of, he had his hat on, that one he let me borrow. And you think maybe he let me borrow it because he thought it'd be good luck. Well, hey, Bernie, that didn't work. But anyway, I saw it.
Should have been wearing local talent.
Because he was on the podcast and he let us borrow the hats, but he took them back. Love that guy. But the thing about him is I don't know if he was like working a list of registered voters or likely voters, or I don't know what he was working off of. I think he was driving around, and if he saw somebody in the driveway, he'd go talk to him. Because I'd be walking with Monica to do door hangers, and we're working a list of likely voters, and I'm not going to tell you all the secrets how we got that list, or how we put it together. But and I'm like, wait, that's a Bernie sign, but that person's not even registered to vote. We were pulling out extra paperwork. Like, wait a minute, that's good that he has a sign in the yard, and he talked to a lot of people, but they didn't vote. And then the second mistake I think he made is, on election day, I was at the UC library, working the library on election day, and a lot of people voted on election day. And I was out there with Ashton. I met her husband, Mark. Is that his name?
You put Mark in my head, and so now I'm like, but Nick.
Nick. Okay, close. N instead of an M. All right. Anyway, I talked to them for like 2 hours. I mean, we were sunburned and all that stuff. And I told Ashton, call Bernie. Where's Bernie? I can't believe he's not out here. Like, he could pick up some votes, and he didn't lose by that much.
Right.
But I kind of felt like, and she called him, and I guess he was in his pool having a beer on election day. We're out there standing at the polls, holding up signs and talking to people as they're coming in. But
they were cannibalizing the same voters, though. I mean, everybody that voted for Ashton, I think, also voted for Bernie. So he would have they would have jockeyed for that third spot. I don't think he would have. I mean, Bear wasn't too far ahead of Ashton, so it's possible that he could have maybe got above Bear and Ashton was above Bear. That's possible, but I don't think it would have changed that much. And you're right. He was kind of guerrilla warfare on the thing. I had one of my employees tell me that she got flashed. Like they were driving down Pat Booker.
Bernie flashed him?
He pulled up next to her and he like honked his horn and he like flashed a sign at the window, and they were they thought it was funny. I think it's kind of funny too.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, I'd go garage selling with my kids, and we'd know the people, and I'd be like, hey, who should we vote for? And I'm like, hey, Bernie's cool, dude. You should check him out. And like 2 hours later, Bernie's like, hey, I went by that garage sale, and they told me that you put in a good name for me, so thanks. And I'm like, he's everywhere. Yeah. That's what he was doing. He was just kind of patrolling.
Hey, real quick, how strategic was your campaign?
Oh, it was pretty minimal.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was very naive. I was kind of dumb. I just sort of thought, I'm going to throw a website out there. I'm going to say, here's my points, and people will either vote for me or not vote for me. Well, right away, I made a key mistake. I was too specific. I said, hey, let's do some of these things. And you start picking away at those. Like, why did he say that? And so now it's on social media about how these are terrible ideas. So if I had just said, like, let's save the kittens and puppies, and they'd be like, all right, let's vote for Phil. And then it's like, no, he said something specific. And I would have people tell me, well, I voted for you because you didn't seem to have an agenda. And I'm like, well, do you know me? Like, I have an agenda. So, but whatever, I like your vote.
Whatever it worked,
yeah. But I think what saved me was there was an organized candidate forum, and they went around and asked questions, and I really poured it out there. I mean, I used to ride my bike through Universal City to the old Rose Garden Elementary School. I mean, I've been here forever.
Sure.
And I want to do this. I have some skills. I want to share them.
Yeah.
Give me a chance. I'm just one vote. So I can't like destroy anything with just the one vote. It's like a bowl. I can't be a bull in a china shop. And so I think it's important to have all those viewpoints represented. One of the questions I had at that candidate forum, because they did it to where everybody threw questions in a hat, and then the moderator picked out the questions and asked them. And one of the ones that I snuck in there was basically what you started with. I said, ask some of the incumbents, when have you ever voted no, against the majority, and what was the issue? And the answers were basically, they couldn't come up with anything substantive that they'd ever voted no on. And I think that was telling. I mean, you want every viewpoint I'm the annoying numbers guy. You need one of those.
Yes.
And then you need one of the cheerleader guys.
Man. Data.
So you need all that in there trying to give a good viewpoint of what needs to go on. So I think that was what kicked me over, not because of my effort or ability to sell myself.
But that wins,
so would you do
Jason.
something different this next time if you decide to run again whenever your seat is up, are you going to change the way you approach it?
I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to put my website up. I'm going to say, here's what I did. Here's what I'd like to do. Here's what I failed at. If you like it, keep me on. If you want me to serve, I'll serve. If you don't want me to serve, I'm blessed. I'm fine moving on to something else. But I mean, my wife doesn't want me to run because it's a lot of stress and
well, yeah, it's taken away from beach time.
That's right. And she's honestly one of the most generous, nicest people I know, and she's getting a little bit of collateral damage from it, and that's just disheartening. That's that
politics, man.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks.
When I first heard about Ashton, all I heard is she wants to close the golf course, and and I called Bear, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's and so, but the more I got to know her, it's not really that. She just wants it to pay for itself.
Right.
I think is the overall thing, and we flushed that out on the podcast, but that's hard to overcome, and especially in today's society when you're campaigning, it's like Disney's woke. I'm against Disney. Let's tax the hell out of them or whatever, and it's like that. Wow, let's vote for that guy. And it's like, what? But he's going to increase taxes on the business, and we're going to have to pay more. And they employ a lot of people. And I think nowadays you can just have those talking points, and nobody gives a shit about the nuts and bolts, and it's like so disappointing because
it is disappointing.
Because that's why you have $600 toilet paper roll purchases and all this stupid
you can't
stuff.
explain all that in an audio clip.
And I'm gonna do there's food trucks that are on our side of town where they got to go to UC and get a permit. So I'm gonna get a permit. Shirts to get a permit. Why can't we unify that? But you know what? If I'm explaining that to a voter, they're gonna say I don't care.
Right.
Moving along. That's the election. What's up with this venue tax? So Ashton, I talked to you, about the golf course. You guys have it's a wonderful facility. It's nice. You guys finally are about to pay it off. You had a venue tax, which is it's part of a sales tax. Can you use that money for anything, or why is that in talks lately from Universal City?
Okay, so this is one of the things that I pitched, and I'm passionate about it. So I wanted to fix the city's revenue structure so we can get the city better on solid financial footing, and this is like the low-hanging fruit. So let me give you the short version, fair and balanced as best I can, and then you give me some feedback, all right? So late 90s, we bought the golf course. We wanted to build it. We had to pass a bond. Voters approved it, build the golf course. 4 or 5 years later, 2002-ish, we said, okay, this isn't working. We're not going to make enough money. We can't pay the bonds, so let's pass a venue tax. So as you probably know, any city can go up to 2% in sales tax, and the venue tax is a portion of what you are allowed to do in sales tax. So we took 25% of that, the voters approved it, say it's a venue tax, which is only for the golf course. This year is the last payment on the bonds. And in the beginning, the sales tax was not much. It wasn't enough to cover the bond payment, but now it's much, much more than the bond payment. It's about $1.6 million a year. Golf course is setting records on rounds played. It's covering its nut on the operating side. So now this is just kind of extra money. So if we do nothing, we'll wake up 10 years from now and have $10 million in the golf course fund from this venue tax, or we can repurpose it. Meanwhile, we're the 27th highest tax rate in the area, property tax rate. Last year we reduced a little bit, so now we're still 25th out of 29. But we have that venue tax. So we can have another election, which we can convert it to something else like what you guys have. You got the municipal development district, which allows you to spend it on infrastructure, and then you have the street maintenance sales tax. So those are some of the options that we could move it into. You also have the property tax relief, sales tax. So that's how you've been able to buy down your property tax rate. So the question is, should we allow the voters to decide, do we want to keep it as a venue tax so it can only go to the golf course, or do we want to repurpose it to something else because the golf course is now covering its costs? What say, Mr. Hadas?
My question is first of all, so it's the golf course now is pretty much self-sufficient, right? It doesn't need a whole lot of help.
Operationally, it's covering its costs.
Yeah.
The city alleges that it has a lot of deferred maintenance, and the number keeps growing. But it was first, a few million, then it's 10 million, and now it might be 20 or 30 million. And so the question is, how do we pay for that if we want to pay for it? But part of the challenge with that is they want this to be this destination wedding venue, and they're complaining because the golfers are getting in the way of the wedding venue. So now we need to separate it somehow because we're focused on this wedding aspect because they don't like a golf cart going through their wedding, which I get, but that's not what it's for. It's not. We're not.
It's a golf course.
It's a golf course. That's what we approved.
And does, you know, so for my politics, I don't think any city should be involved in the wedding business. I would think fostering a private business to come in and have a wedding venue.
Yeah, maybe you know some incentive for a private business to come in and you know.
And so that's my first thing on that. The second thing is you know, I'm not really a fan of a city running a golf course. You're at the point now where it's doing well enough, and it is a very nice golf course. Other golf courses are shutting down, so I'm not surprised your round numbers are up. As far as the sales tax go, I feel like sales tax is the fairest way to tax Americans. And because property tax, you never own your house. The bigger the house, the more the property tax, the schools, you know, and it's just, you know, you never really own your house in Texas. It's incredible. You don't believe me, you know, and if you don't make a payment on it,
or your truck,
if you don't make a payment on it, then you're going to go to jail. You know, you'll get fined, and then they'll take your property, and then they can take it, right? And so, for me, I like using sales tax revenue. It seems to me for the venue tax for my politics is I would like to see some money going back for some of the prioritized maintenance for the golf course, if it were me. But I'm wondering if you can just take that venue tax and just move it to the general fund.
Well, that's the pitch. Is let's repurpose it for the primary focus, you know, police, fire, streets, and infrastructure, and throw little parks in there maybe. But that's what it should be the focus. And then if we have extra money, let's throw it at the golf course. But the kicker is, and I've been told this from the city, is, well, they don't want the golf course to have to compete for funding. I think that's completely unfair. I mean, that should be part of the process. Like, why should they get first crack at the dollars coming in over anything else that the city does? I think we should focus on the primary, and if we have excess, send it over there. And part of the problem is you guys hit it on the head. You know, that really it should be a private business running a wedding venue. It's not us. But as long as it has that crutch of the venue tax coming in, they'd have no incentive to turn a profit or run it efficiently. So you have to take that away. So they're forced to try to run this well.
Well, and then the second, I guess my other thing too. My second thought would be then is, you know, whether or not I agree the golf course should have to compete with those. Is this something you can let the voters decide on?
It has to be voter decision.
Oh,
but but as a council, it doesn't get to the voters unless council approves to put it in front of the voters. And the council currently doesn't want to do that because they're afraid
of the outcome.
Exactly. Which I said at a meeting, if you're
afraid what our constituents might want, so we're not going to give them a choice.
Then we're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I think that it sounds to me like, you know, it's put it in front of the voters. Let them decide. What I mean,
it was just last night. We had a 4-hour meeting last night. So 10:30. The only way you can get something on.
I just heard your butt pucker.
I know.
That's like a whole year's worth of meetings in Selma.
Four hours. That's like a half a meeting in Cibolo.
Yeah.
The only way you can get something on the agenda is at the end in your council member comments. You ask, can we get a consensus, which is 4 out of 6, to even put it on the agenda to even talk about it. So, Councilmember Buck's up there saying, let's take a vote on this venue tax. I brought it up in September. They never put it on the agenda until February. So we finally did it, and then we had to have a workshop later because nobody could make a decision. And now we're at this point where it's been 4 months and nothing's happening. So anyway, he's pitching, next meeting, let's just vote on this. I don't care which way it goes. We need to vote. And the council is just like, no, we can't do that. It's like, well, why? Why can't we have a vote?
Well, what do I think? I think that based on what I saw in the last election, and, you know, this is no slight on Ashton's campaign efforts, but I think the citizens would say, no, keep the venue tax for the golf course. I think that's how it would, unless there was some big campaign to change that. For me, it's such a close election. Let's just let the people vote on it. It seems
exactly.
Does the city currently own the golf course? Is that how it's structured?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there ever going to be a decision not to own it?
Probably not. I
So
don't.
This is pretty. This is ingrained in UC. We have a golf course that's owned and operated by the city.
Yeah, it's also has a I don't know if you've ever been there, but the clubhouse has a section that can be rented out for events.
Right.
And you might even ask me about this later, but
the NEP was held there. Right?
we don't use it as much as we probably could, and there's lots of opportunities there. But they look at it as
Hold on. We as in the city, or we as in the city renting it out to private?
City renting it out to
Okay.
for events or whatever. But they look at it as two things: it's a golf course and a conference center, and so they want. If selling the golf course means also probably losing the conference center, and they don't want to lose that. Conference center is being generous. I wouldn't. It's not that far down the road, but it has multiple uses that could be employed.
I mean, y'all got plenty of places to build a conference center. If it was just the conference center that was the issue,
well, or senior center or community center that people want, like a multi-purpose place.
right?
But
right.
I don't. Everybody likes the golf course. I think they like having it in University, and I like it. I don't want to close it either.
Yeah. It is kind of weird for me, being the novice that I am. It just seems weird for me that a city owns and operates a golf course. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem like that's oil and water to me.
It happens. The other interesting thing too is what's your government philosophy? Your overall philosophy. Should government be in the running a business, right? I mean, are you going to call somebody in, for your entrepreneur show, local talent business, or your business show, Jason, and have somebody come in and talk about what it's like to run a golf course? I just, do you want the government to be in the wedding business and event planning business and so on and so forth? That said, it's a really nice facility. I think there could be some, obviously some normal maintenance and upgrades made and stuff like that.
But see, that's why it gets to me. That's why it gets muddy. That's why it gets to be gray instead of black and white, right? Because it is a business, and businesses you have to grow them, and you have to, you know what I mean. And governments typically don't make good. I'm just generalizing here, don't make good business decisions because they got free money from the taxpayers. You know what I mean? They have no incentive to make things better or make things good or keep things going or anything else. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and Universal City employs a bartender. Do you know a lot of cities that employ bartenders and chefs? And it's a different thing. That said, it's at the point now where it's pretty much running itself. Obviously, some tweaks, some business professionals to come in and look at it, maybe a little consulting or whatever. That might be some options, but it seems to me like putting the venue tax, did that pass last night?
It passed to have another discussion only agenda item. That's the box they've kept putting me in. So I'm like, hey, let's talk about this. And they're like, well, okay, but discussion only. So then
no voting.
Yeah. So then we get to the agenda item and it's like, I want to do this. And they're all like, okay. Like, well, what do we do now? And they're like, okay, we're moving on to the next item. It's like, well, so we don't have any really written rules, and that's something that's also coming up next month that I'm trying to pitch for. Is like, what do we? If we have discussion only item, we need to at least take a consensus. Is this dead, or are we going to bring it back later?
Right.
All right. Well, moving along here. So yeah, I mean, if you didn't use it, the venue tax. This is a perfect segue. This is the segue of the year right here, Jason. If you're not going to use the money for that, why don't you use it for a senior center? What is going on? I heard you guys are building. What you build? You have a library, right? You have a golf course. You have a football stadium, right? It's kind of more of a field, but all right. Spin it. You got a wonderful, beautiful disc golf course and a splash pad. Did I say splash pad? And now, are you guys going to add a senior center? Is that something that? Why am I hearing about you guys might build a senior center?
That's what the people say. That's not what the city says.
Okay.
So there's a disconnect, and you just talked about our parks plan that got approved. They poll everybody and say, "What do you want? We want a pool and we want a senior center."
Of course.
Okay, well, we're going to give you some trails. It's like, oh, all right, great, good comfort. Like, why do we even ask for input if we're going to dismiss it?
Well, because at the tail end of that, they say we want these things, but we don't want any more taxes either.
Right. Well, the senior center has been a long time in the making. It's been out there for a while because we got an aging population and they're aging in place. And they're not leaving Universal City, which I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just saying those people are looking for somewhere to go. And Schertz seems too far. They don't want to go to the Schertz Senior Center, so they want the city to come up with something.
Well, and that's good. You don't want UC spending money in shirts.
I know. But you guys are going to run a senior center business now.
No, I don't. It's not going to happen.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
because the city's not interested in it, and the city gets what the city wants. So we're just here along for the ride.
That's enough of the senior center. All right, real quick. Latest on the aviation district. Have you guys had any updates on the downtown UC? I know you kind of started that new. Is that an EDC event? The Pat Booker Pub Crawl.
It is not.
It is not
Sanctioned, no.
No, it's not sanctioned. Okay, but I'm looking forward to doing that sometime. I've been talking to maybe doing a Tri-County event or something. It sounds like a lot of getting a bus or something. But what's the latest? I know Gather. I was there 2 weeks ago. What a Mike Bowler, and that place is amazing. I think the food's good, the beer's good, the atmosphere is good. It's not big enough. It's unbelievable. It's doing great. Are they opening up a second location? Do you have any, is there any more businesses coming, or are you guys just buying vacant buildings?
All of the above. We're buying vacant buildings.
Okay.
We're hoping and praying that it's gonna work out. So the plan is spread the cash and maybe magic will happen. That's kind of where we're at. So there's been lots of discussion about what the city is envisioning. So a giant amphitheater right down there in the middle. How has your amphitheater worked out in Selma?
It's run by a church now. And the interesting thing is we're trying to collect sales taxes. A little side note here in River City. So the ticket sales are coming out of San Antonio, so we don't get to collect the sales tax on it. So
we got a parking garage. We got an amphitheater. We might have some little park areas, but we don't know. So there's an old gas station we bought, and this is going to be our first taste where they put out for proposals. Apparently, this is again news that I learned last night. So we're letting to see what the developers are going to pitch. Like, basically, give it to me and I'll do X, Y, and Z. But we don't know what it's going to be. Bullman tried to push, like, well, do you have any clue? Is it going to be fast food? Is it going to be some kind of retail store? I don't know. We'll see what they give us.
You bought the building, and then you've reached out to developers to say, give us your idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, why do you think you're having trouble? I know Amy, obviously there's staples. I don't want to put any business down. And there's you guys have some, you have the Four Kings, the Ticket. There's been some businesses that have been there, for a long time. The place up by Gaddy's Pizza up towards 1604, that's still in UC, right? The Chinese restaurant. There's just been some places, and going down is you have Used Guys and Polly's, and there's just been some amazing family businesses that seem to be doing well. The Cheddars, the Chester's, the cheeseburger place. There's some businesses that do really well. Why do you think people are unwilling to? It's too far from the highway. Is that? Because you have Randolph right there. Schertz is growing. UC is growing. Gather came in and built that business, and it's thriving. Why are other businesses? Is it permitting? What?
Well, there's a lot of that. You hear things like the city. A lot of things don't make it to council, so we have a hard time. But the city admitted recently that they get pitched a lot of ideas and they turn a lot of them down. So we don't really know what those are or why they're turning them down, but that's part of it.
I know it was self-storage that was turned down on Pet Booger.
Really? Jeez. And the same thing with the apartment complex. Man,
it's been a while. It's been a few years.
But I kind of reject the premise, because everybody says, well, why do we need to tear it all down and redo? If I thought this was a crappy town, I wouldn't live here. I wouldn't be raising a family here. So, okay, yes, maybe there's a couple extra vape shops that maybe you would prefer not to have. Yes, maybe there's a little too many Mexican restaurants or car repair businesses right on Pat Booker. Maybe that would be a little bit better to have some other locations. But why are we going to spend millions of dollars in the hopes that we can cobble together enough business to put something right next to the railroad tracks, right under the flight path?
And you guys have a drive-through daiquiri place.
We do.
Come on. There's a lot of those old businesses that have kind of been repurposed and reconverted into new stuff. And look, owning a family, I told the story before, and I don't know if it ever made the cut because of our editor, but maybe this time it will, is when I was campaigning with, Leonard John took me around, and I met every Friesenhan in the world, and, all these different people that he grew up with. It was a wonderful experience. He took me up to Bill Miller one day,
And there's all these pictures of the original Bill Miller and stuff. And he goes, Kevin, you can't build this in America anymore. It is too hard. And that's why when you drive from San Antonio up to Dallas, it's the same business over and over and over again because of permitting, regulations, restriction, fire restrictions, red tape. You can't start a business anymore. And you see, it's not a perfectly planned out business right now, the way it's planned, but that's kind of the free market is kind of thriving there. And so the question is, you know, for these family mom and pop type businesses, is there stuff that the city could do to get rid of some of the red tape? And I asked Johnny the same thing in Selma, and, you know, well, you know, yeah, of course, you know, we'll work with anybody, you know, that's the typical thing. But I mean, you know, when we had everybody in here to ask them about the permits, what was the one permit that they all complained about, Jason?
The fence.
The fence permit. If you replace more than 5 pickets on your fence, if you replace 6, you have to get a permit. The permit costs more than the repair on the fence, right? And I know Bernie Perot had up all his charts and stuff.
Well, he had this whole thing covered up. I was like, man, we need another table in here.
Yeah, he had everything, and he explained that to us. But I think that's part of the problem is there are some vacant businesses where the pizza place used to be 45th Street. Is that what it's? Mm-hmm. I saw that one was empty the other day. But I think if you're a mom and pop, you're driving by and you're like, oh man, man, that'd be a great place for a Las Palapas, even though, and that's a chain, but or whatever my dream business. Yeah. But man, I'd be caught up in regulation, and I think people are afraid to do that. So the solution now that cities are doing is let's build an amphitheater and you know, an outdoor hockey rink and, you know, whatever else they're going to put in to try to, you know, create that environment so people come. But you guys have Randolph, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars go through Randolph every year. And plus you have all these retired military people, and people are going to spend money in UC. And I think they are. I don't know if the plan is to change that family business dynamic. Look at downtown Sybil. Those are all family businesses. Right?
Yes.
But the EDC is the one that they're separate, and they're the ones that put in the plan for the downtown.
They're sort of separate. We did the aviation master plan. We did a master plan for the whole city in 2018, and they included this aviation district master plan. And so that's what the city beat us over the head with last night, was saying, look, you guys approved this in 2018, so we can't change it. We're executing. Shut up and like it. Mm-hmm. That's basically what the pitch was last night. So we're going to do it again next year. $250,000 to pay some consultants to come in to poll the people on what we should do the next 5 years. $250,000, but it's not the people.
Is that up for bid?
It's hand-picked people. So they're going to pick people that they want to be on these committees to tell them what they want to hear, so they can put it in the plan and then beat us over the head with it for the next 5 years, saying,
look, we got a
this is what we approve. This is what the people said. But then we do the parks plan, and we have all those votes, and say, oh, well, that was just a vote, and the people don't know what they want. So it's like, I don't think you can take both sides. But you're right. I like University. We don't need to overhaul it. If you want to make that better, she brought up a TERS down there, which is where you just say, we're going to give tax breaks. Anybody comes in here and redevelops it. So you don't do anything. You just sit back and wait. And somebody's going to jump on that and make it happen for whatever they think is going to make money. And that's what you would do to revitalize that. Or you do street improvements, you do nice signage, you put up make it cohesive, what the city's portion, you know, the right of way. And the business will be like, hey, this is kind of nice. Maybe I can put that nifty boutique that the city would like to see over there. But forcing it is a pain. And Ashton was really big on this too, that we should be supporting the businesses that are there to keep them open.
That's where I was going to go.
Last night, I don't know if you guys know the El Rincon Caribbean. It's very, very small, right across from McDonald's on Pat Booker. Mm-hmm. Apparently, he's been closed for some time. There's been some issues with the building. I couldn't really understand him because he speaks Spanish. I had no idea what was going on. But he's been closed. He's trying to reopen. He's been there since 2016. Small business, just like you said. What can the EDC do to help this guy get his restaurant back open? Let's do that. Let's not put a temporary parking lot down in Aviation that we're going to tear up in 5 years. Let's put some of that towards
local business,
helping him out.
Like Gather Brewing. Beautiful place. They got a big chunk from the EDC, right?
Which is why I ran.
So, because why?
because it was a terribly organized deal. I love Gather Brewing.
Yeah,
Everyone
no,
loves
it's
them.
a beautiful
great.
place, right?
But we gave them $500,000,
right,
and their
$500,000.
Their property tax bill is $2,400 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to really see that back. I know they're generating some sales tax, but would you think we're tracking that? No. So we have no idea what our return on investment is there, and we just gave it to them. And this was during COVID. So had they closed during COVID and we just missed out, all that money, poof.
So where I was going to go with that is the existing businesses that are down there. I don't think there's another brewing business down there, but when you're talking about buying buildings and then giving them to the developers, right? How do you think these other businesses, like if I had a business down there, like El Rincon, you know, and you see all this money being given to these other businesses, and it's like, hey, I've already been here, you know what I mean? So it just seems like that would be a good way to get me to just screw this place, or you know, like, you know, I'm gonna sell this building and then go to the EDC and say, hey, which one of these buildings can I get for free or whatever, and move my location over there instead of dealing with this. It seems, I hate using the word fair, but
yeah, and there's a little more to the Gather story too. You know, they got you know, because I know Mike. You know, he got I remember some passionate discussions about being caught up in the permit process. And,
I'm not taking anything away from the business Gather Brewing. It's an awesome place. They have awesome product, the great beer, awesome food.
If you're retail, you want more retail around you. So I think the way they look at it is, you know, if Papados came and opened up a steakhouse down there by Randolph, I think all those businesses down there would be pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the reason why they wanted to do it too. They're thinking this is the starter. We need something as a anchor, and then other stuff will come around it. And you're right. It's not about Gather Brewery. It's about the way what the EDC structures are deal. Because they did the same thing.
Well, the city's role, right? The city's role into I get it. EDC for everybody is Economic Development Committee. That makes sense. I get it, But
you do it like Selma did. You don't have an EDC, but you did a deal with Costco, and you said, come in and build Costco, and then we'll give you back your sales tax over a certain period of time until we pay you back this giant sum of money, which is giant, but you were only paying them back as they performed for the city. If they closed up shop and ran away, you weren't out anything.
And you got the building.
And now you have all that sales tax coming in, and you're benefiting from it. That's how you structure it.
They came on the books, I think, right during COVID, or it was like the timing was perfect. You know? We just got lucky. Yeah, but and what a staple that is. You know, that's the one thing, you know, Mayor Williams said he would relinquish the golf course if he could just have the sales tax revenue from Costco. And I would imagine he'd get support from Councilman Phil here. So, you know.
So I mean, what is there a solution? Is there a way to accommodate businesses downtown? Is that even the EDC's role? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Is it just tough luck? That's just the way it is. I mean, what do you think? I mean,
they can give loans, they can give grants, they can do whatever they really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, their focus is on bigger and better, not
and modern.
Yeah, not existing. I mean, I think they're kind of down on what we have. They'll give you a new sign. Sure. If you want a new sign, but that's about all that they seem to be willing to do for existing businesses. And I don't know all the facts and circumstances on every business and what their challenges are, but
absolutely.
I don't why we can't try to help figure out what those are and see if there's a solution.
Well, I mean, especially if it's got something to do with the building, the building itself, if it's dilapidated or if it's not meeting some kind of code, that seems like that would be more up the EDC's alley to want to help, right?
Well, and there's a lot more to it over by where your office is located, that whole business park back there. I mean, imagine dropping a Top Golf right there off of 1604. But the EDC, you know, I think the Aviation District, they're trying different things. Let's see what, you know, they're aggressively, you know, the best they can going after it. But at the same time, you know, you got to hunt down these big businesses that just generate massive amounts of money. And, they decide to put a Top Golf near your office off of 1604, let's just say that happened, you know, that whole area would blow up with, you know, Whataburgers and, you know, all the stuff's going to come in around it. And so, but to get those, you got to have relationships, you know, you got to call those people, you got to go visit them when they're at a conference, you know, or not a conference or a trade show in Vegas. And, you know, you got to be aggressively, you know, hunting those people down and you're fighting for dollars against a lot of other places. Or what's the next big thing? You know, I mean, iFly, you know, is Tesla going to open up, you know, I guess car dealerships don't make any money, but my point is that's the kind of stuff that you have to try to hunt down, and you try to find those one or two things. I mean, you guys have an HEB and a Walmart.
Right. And within like half a mile of each other.
in half a mile, and then but you don't have, let's see, Home Depot, that's Live Oak, right? So
Right.
those are what's your that so Walmart's probably your big, and HEB are probably your biggest. Walmart's probably your biggest sales tax generator then, huh?
Yeah, and it's been game changing for us when they came in. I mean,
Yeah.
our sales tax has gone through the roof, and that's what's allowing.
Did
us
y'all
to
court
more opportunity.
Walmart, or did they approach you?
It was a little bit before me, so I
Sure.
don't know the whole story, but I think they came to us.
Mhm.
We used to have one a long time ago where the Rush Fun Park is.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry. It was where Gaddy's was the Walmart.
Yeah,
The Rush Fun Park was a Kmart. But we had both of those.
You've
And
been
then-
around so long. You remember when Kmart was in UC?
Yes.
Wow.
I don't know if I ever went there, but
Wow.
it was Kmart. But yeah, that didn't work out.
Wow, that's
So
a
then
long-
Walmart
That was
ran
my
away.
first order of business, getting them guys out of there. No, I'm just kidding.
And then they came, and then Walmart decided to come back, which on a worse location, honestly, because it's not on a major highway. You got to come inside a little bit. But yeah, so
Well, they made that all their own too, right? I mean, they kind of had a limited, I don't know, the new place that they're at right now. That's on Kitty Hawk, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I remember when they were building all that.
Well, and so moving on, I have to ask you a couple fun questions. We'll kind of wrap up with that, right? So the first thing is you gave me this note and I asked you a little about it, alluded to it. So tell me about the pub crawl, the Pat Booker pub. Is that an official? Do you have to wear a blue shirt? I mean,
I think we're prohibited from wearing the blue shirt.
Okay,
Yeah, so
for that one, so you get
Yeah.
an Uber or whatever. You start where?
well, we did this a couple years ago in my office where we noticed there's all these restaurants on Pat Booker and University that we've never been to. Like you drive by it every day if you've never been there. So we wrote them all down on a whiteboard, and everybody at the office tried to go to them, and you rated them. Like, how was this one? So like, ooh, they did pretty well on that one. So let's go over there. So that was fun. And then the same thing I realized I love all the businesses in Universal City, and I supported them
Let
all.
me start with that.
But there are some that are a little sketch, that I would
Yeah.
be a little bit nervous to go by myself. So let's get like a group together and go. And like one of them is the Pond Pub, which is behind McDonald's. I don't know if you've ever. It's behind
I've been in there.
Chester's.
I've been in there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's no windows.
Don't tell anybody. I guess they know now. Too late. I've been in there. Yeah.
It had to have been a strip club at some point.
No
There's
windows.
there's no windows, and there's like a sunken in place down below. So
Elevated floors.
The music stops when you walk in, and they all look at you. Yeah.
So that was where we started. But
Yeah.
we went there. We went to Hourglass Cocktails across
Yeah.
from the
Hourglass.
Hourglass. If you want a new family, that's where I'd recommend that you go. They seem very connected. There was a big group there. They had a potluck while we were there. I think it was like a
Wow.
Christmas potluck. It's
Yeah.
like a strip center, and they have a little bitty like outdoor patio right on Pat
Yeah.
Booker. That was an interesting one. And then we hit Billy D's.
Billy D's.
Yeah. And that one probably was a strip club. I asked and they said no. But there's like a back room that's dark, but then you have the front. That one didn't have as much of an identity to know what it was. Yeah, and then that's where we had to kind of call it quits because the only other, and you tell me if I'm missing one, but the other two are you got Gather Brewery, you got The Ticket, and you got JT's now that they're calling it.
I don't know where JT's is the one I didn't know about. Where it's
Well, it used to be called Roxy's,
okay,
but
All
now
right.
it's JT's.
No, unless you wanted to extend it out, into Live Oak.
That's across the border. You can't go there.
Yeah, all right. So
But
it
I-
ends. It ends though. So there isn't a bar in the Chinese restaurant there at 1604. Szechuan, is that the name of it? There is a bar. I guess that's on Universal City Boulevard, though, not on Pat Booker and Noise. There's a
Okay.
bar.
Yeah.
It's technically close enough. It could be thrown into the hat.
Well, but I plugged for the new one, Screaming Chameleon. You guys
Yeah.
heard about the food truck park
No.
behind Taco Bell
There's a Taco Bell.
on Pat
Kitty
Booker?
Hawk? Pat Booker? Not Kitty. Yeah, Kitty Hawk. Kitty Hawk. and Pat
Yeah,
Booker.
so you go all the way down to the railroad
right by the
tracks.
O'Reilly's.
It's called Screaming Chameleon. It's a food truck park. If you don't like the outdoors for the food truck park, where they're going to have live bands, but inside they also have a bar. I haven't been yet, but we're going to add it to the list from August when we do our next round. But they have, what I've heard is they have little rooms, so you can go as a group and like hang out in the room, air conditioned, and that the bar is pretty cool. So
Well, and you know what? And Universal City's a member of the Tri-County. We certainly appreciate that. Tri-County sponsored this show for the candidate forums. We thank them dearly for that. We work with your EDC to try to do more events and get more things going on in UC, and so we'll continue with that. But this seems like maybe could be an EDC event. Sounds like you guys have plenty of money. I mean, you threw $500,000 at. I mean.
And
All
notice
right.
what they threw $500,000 at.
All
a
right.
bar.
All right, couple more questions here and we're done. This one came from a council member in Universal City. That obviously
Shall remain nameless.
Yeah, shall remain nameless. Why couldn't we get a Judson Bond sign in your yard?
Because I voted no on the Judson Bonds.
You were against both or just Prop B?
Well, we needed a new middle school. It was pretty clear. But a part of the reasons why we needed it was, I think, poor management on Judson's part. You know, the open district concept where they let kids go anywhere. So now the schools are overcrowded. And then you have some kids like in the Copperfield that live in that neighborhood that can't even go to the school because the school's overcrowded. So they say we need a new school because we're too crowded. Why? I don't like the fact that they, one, packaged that with another bond that said, well, we need safety improvements, when it was really just a rebranded first bond that was
Voted against
air conditioning in the gym because that's safety, because we need to be able to lock the doors and shove the kids inside and not have them fry. That's a little stretch for me, but I don't really trust them. Just like you're saying with the money, even with Universal City, I don't trust. You gotta sell me on it, and they didn't sell me on it.
Yeah.
Could you summarize your no vote with one or two things, or was it a combination of a lot of things?
I hear from my wife because she's plugged into the school, and so she was angry about some of the academic direction.
Yeah.
Like, for example, they killed GT at Olympia, and so there was no role replacement, and we're kind of like teaching down to the bottom level. You know, my fifth grader shows up at school the first day, and she gets the form about, tell me about your fifth grader. Second question, what are your preferred pronouns? I almost like threw up all over the table. And so I'm disappointed in the district.
Sure.
And then the fact that they go over the top and like want us to build them an auditorium, and they want us to build all of these schools with saying we need all this growth, but then you look right around the corridor and we have these major charter schools like Basis, right where the old Wayland Baptist University is. You got Great Hearts right across the street. And I'm not saying that we need to just give up and lose to them, but I'm saying there's more competition, and we're not necessarily going to need facilities. Like, let's reinvest it in the teachers. Let's make the academic program more focused and better, and not necessarily jump to when you new facilities.
Is it fair to say that you feel like maybe there's a misappropriation of the money that they already have?
I don't know that I'm plugged in enough to know that.
Okay.
No,
okay.
The problem is, and the one thing that,
because right now the budget is a shit show, the way I understand it.
I think the thing about it is we've had a cultural shift in this last election with Monica and Laura getting elected, where I was watching the Judson meetings, and like the preferred pronouns, we hired or have one, or we're going to hire, an equity and diversity manager. We have male and female athletic directors, and all this, this culture war that's going on in our society that I make fun about on both sides because it's so ridiculous in my mind. I just want liberty, for everybody, businesses, individuals. You do you, and
don't impose it on me,
right? And don't impose it on me, or I mean,
that's
the book banning, and I mean all this stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's just too much. But Judson was kind of getting the southern end of the district coming up, was kind of getting sucked into that whole cultural thing, and on the north end, we're like, well, we don't want that to be part of our schools. We just want, good education. We want good teachers. We want to go back to Olympia next summer and see the same teachers we saw this summer, and on and on and on. And we were going back, and they were different teachers, and so on and so forth. And, and so I for me, it just seems, it's like when I tell, I've been talking to Phil a little bit about the Judson stuff, I'm screaming to get anybody to pay attention that will. And what did I say? You give government money and you're not getting it back. You're just not. And once you do that, and so there were things in this last bond I wasn't, completely, thrilled about or whatever, but I know that Olympia is growing and Rolling Meadows is growing massively. I think they just added like their 9th portable out there or something. And I knew we needed the elementary school, and, I don't know if our staff in Selma's tickled about it. We have to do active shooter now and all that, it's changed a lot. But there were some things in the, that were necessary. Was it too much? Probably. I don't think I would disagree with Phil on that. But
okay, so I think all of us agree about the bond is a really good way to get the temperature of the community, right?
Right.
And then so the first I say the first bond, but the bond that was voted down in 2021. Is that right? The Judson Bond in 2021. Is that
Was
right?
it just the year before or was it 2 years before?
2 years before.
So 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. We did one in 15 and 7, or was it? Yeah, it was 15.
We're in 23, and so this bond that but that was passed last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, anyways, the bond that was passed last year, and then the bond that failed before that, right? So, back to the idea of putting things up for bond is a good way to gauge the temperature of the voters. Do you think that since the first one failed, it was kind of repackaged and people were confused?
The need for a middle school just became too apparent.
Okay.
However, I'm just going back to some of the reasons why we were against it. So my wife was plugged in. She got asked by the principal to go to all the meetings that the district gave, and she participated in all the conversations, and they gave out all the attendance metrics for all the other schools. And you look at the southern end.
She was on the growth and planning committee.
Right. So you see that there's like some southern end of the school has capacity, but the northern end was a little bit crammed. So you move the boundaries a little bit. You maybe consider some of those things. We didn't see them considering that. When they got to the end of that committee, what her impression was, they asked, "Are we ready to go for this bond?" And they said, "No, we're not ready." But the district said, "No, we're doing it anyway." Is that your understanding too?
Because Uvalde happened, and it was
it was an opportunity,
right?
So it was an opportunity to sell this as security, and when we might be able to get it through. Yeah. So that just leaves a bad taste in your mouth too.
Yeah.
And it was obvious that in her impression from those meetings was that they were pretending to get input from the citizens and weren't really interested in. They were obviously pushing it this way and just trying to make it a token.
I'm not grilling you, by the way. I haven't actually spoke to anybody that voted no against it, so I was just like, "Oh,
well, I mean,
give me your input."
There's more than a couple of us because it didn't pass by like a huge margin,
right? I just personally, I'm not in the Judson School District.
Yeah,
either,
it was 63%. It was pretty. It was pretty big. Yeah, it was pretty big. Final question, and this is like completely like its own category, but it will affect UC. So I keep hearing from all my Abbott friends, Greg Abbott friend. I'm conservative, but I'm more libertarian, right? So, what this property tax relief that was passed by the governor, they're like, "Oh, Abbott's given us all this money," but he's really not. How is that going to affect cities?
Well, I know what the two proposals were, but has he actually passed it?
Yeah, I think he signed the one that was $100,000 homestead exemption.
I think that was only for ISDs, though.
Was it? I don't know. But I mean, how is that even going to work for ISDs? Are they just going to, because they can increase the tax rate? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, so they already are capped. So the state says this is the property tax that an ISD can charge. We calculate it based on what you have, and you say this is the max you can do and the minimum you can do, and then you're kind of stuck in between those two. What happens is the state just makes up the difference. So if they cut from the ISDs, the state has to increase how much they're kicking in. So it doesn't really impact the ISDs that much. It just means you have a little bit less control. You're a little bit more subject to
the more
state.
that comes from the state, the more the state says, we got some strings that comes along with this money.
Exactly.
So
ooh, that's juicy.
It wasn't
Hold on,
for
real
counties?
quick.
Oh, go ahead.
So let me devil's advocate on this, right? So if the state has an agenda for what the schools should have in their curriculum and whatnot, right? If they increase the sales tax way high and it's not met, right? And then the state comes in and they fill in the difference with more money than say that what?
It's property tax, not sales. Property tax, not sales.
I didn't think I said sales. But anyways, my point though is
you said sales.
Did I say sales tax?
Yeah.
Can you rewind that?
We forgive you.
My point though is that it seems like that's a great way to push an agenda.
It's called the Robin Hood. So back in the day, the state was funding, and then Alamo Heights it actually started in Alamo Heights as a history on it. I researched it at one point, and they had so much money, and then the state, was giving them the same amount of money as they were giving poor districts, and the poor districts didn't have enough money for books and stuff, and Alamo Heights had a pool and, and all this stuff. And so it's called the Robin Hood law, amendment, whatever you call it, and the state basically offsets property taxes. My concern is, I thought it was for cities, counties, and everything, that $100,000 homestead exemption, and I'm like, okay, so the state's not giving you any money unless they give the cities a check to make that up. All the cities are going to do is raise, it's like inflation, they're just going to raise the rate of what their tax rate is.
Yeah, it's going to really hit the businesses hard because they're not going to get that homestead exemption. So if it expands beyond ISDs, I'm not 100% on that, and I'm not sure he's actually signed it either. I think it's just they're talking about calling back another legislative session because the House has a different version where they're focused on the rates, and the Senate's focused on the homestead exemption. I think they're fighting over the two. But you're right, because then it means if you're a homeowner, you're going to get more of a break. But if you're a business, you're really SOL because they're going to raise those rates to try to recoup it, and the business is going to have to pay even more share of that. And I know everybody's like, oh, we hate the businesses anyway. They're evil, so we'll make them pay it. But you're paying it too because that's your local restaurant that now is going to increase their meal prices to try to recoup that. So we're all going to pay it one way or another.
You think $4 beers are expensive? They'll just raise it to $6. And that's another lesson that I learned from the great Leonard John.
Yeah, but the Alamo Heights is a good example because they're a client of mine, and they basically have to levy a property tax. They don't really get to keep any of it because a lot of it has to go to the state, and the state doesn't give them a penny. But they give them a piece of paper that says, oh, well, we let you keep this. So that's state money now. And it has these strings. You need to spend it in these ways. But really, they didn't get a dime from them. And so that's kind of where we're going, is where all the districts are going to kind of get a little bit less control and the state's going to have more control. But when you think about it, their strategy is to eliminate property taxes for ISDs completely and make it completely state funded. And the reason they want to do that is for the backpack funding for vouchers. Because the state can't really give a kid money to go anywhere he wants right now because of the property taxes is a major component that makes it hard for them. So that's their strategy, is to try to keep reducing it, make it more state, so then that money can follow the kids anywhere they want to go.
And that's a little bit concerning. I mean, it sounds good right now, vouchers and and charter schools, and I'm for competition as much as possible. The problem is someday it may not be a conservative government, and the state's going to be able to come in and say, you're required to hire 7 equity and diversity managers, and we're going to have inclusion studies and or whatever. I don't know all the terminology for it, but whatever.
How's that wrapped into the vouchers?
Well, because the state is controlling school finance by, if they you start going to these voucher systems and stuff that's coming from the state, and the more the state takes control, the more. And Texas is growing a little closer to purple, and and someday it's going to be blue.
Two things I'd say to that. One is, so if you're a private school now, you get money, you do whatever you want. But what they're going to say is, if you want this voucher from this kid, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to become.
So the private school isn't no longer going to be run how they see fit.
Right. The state's going to.
Because they got a voucher.
Or they're going to say, well, we don't accept vouchers because we don't want those issues. And so they're going to have to try to figure that out. But the other thing I would say, to your point, is the state, as it is now, we don't have an income tax. And our sales tax is what it is. I don't see them really increasing that. I'm not even sure how that would be done, if it's a constitutional amendment or not. So the amount of money they have to kick around is limited. So they can't necessarily say, well, we're going to give you an extra $100,000 for a DEI person at your school, because they may not have the money to do it. And they don't have a way to get more money.
We're not there yet. I mean, we do have the gaming. We don't.
Well, I mean, I think though, in a long enough timeline, right? You might not be there yet, but I mean, the problem is the power associated with that. I mean, once you give the government money, you're not giving it back. Once you give them power, you're not getting it back either.
Well, and I'm also a fan of local control. I believe local control and controlling your own communities. I mean, this last session was basically a grab of local control from cities, school districts. It's it's going to be, it's great when it's your government in there, but as soon as it's not great. Everybody likes everybody wants the 10 Commandments up in the schools until people start dropping them in Arabic.
Yeah.
And then someday, different religions running our government in 100 years, and they're putting up their religious, you know what I'm saying? We're getting away from the foundation of our country because we want to push our values and beliefs on people. And so
legislate morality.
Yeah. And so with that, Phil, thank you for coming in. Thank you for being a good friend. And, obviously, we'd like to get your business in here some point and have you come in and talk about what you do with auditing cities and things you found that you're allowed to talk about.
That would be even more exciting. than this
I bet.
Podcast was.
Yeah, but it means a lot that you came in here and that you've been a good friend. And good luck with your run for mayor in May.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah.
But if I'm allowed, may I closing comment?
Yeah, of course.
I just want to tell any of my fellow council members or city people that might be watching, we disagree. We have arguments. They don't see my viewpoint, but that doesn't mean we're terrible people. So I always try to take this viewpoint that I don't agree with a lot of my other council members, but I know they're doing what they think's right. I'm doing what I think's right. Let's not roll our eyes or throw pencils at the council meeting if we can avoid it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, people have forgotten that you can disagree with somebody and still be civil.
Yeah, don't slam a glass door on the way out of a Judson School Board meeting. So with that, thank you, Phil, for coming in.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate
All right, thank you
your time.
guys. Appreciate it.